Good evening, everyone. We are in the Public Arts Select Committee of Wednesday, May 2nd. Halfan Squalum, Quis Talakmat, Klas Squamish, Oweomeoch. Welcome to the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. There is an agenda in front of the committee. I'm looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. Moved by Meg, seconded by Catherine. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. We have minutes from our April meeting. Move approval of the minutes. Moved by Meg, seconded by Fran. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Is there any business arising from the minutes? It comes up later, we can do it in the round table after. Show and tell.
I know, eh? 2.5 years in the making.
Are you ready?
I am. It's going to be really just.
That's awesome.
I love mosaics, and here are some mosaics.
That's cool.
But did you want to do the other? I can do it. Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah.
All right, great. I think it's. Mosaic to me isn't super well known as an art form, particularly for public art, and
Except in like Iran.
yeah, I mean there are certain parts of the world where you're going to
Morocco.
definitely see them, and you're lucky to do that. These two mosaics are actually in the same location, and it used to be about a 10-minute walk from where I used to live, and that's the British Museum. The first one on the left is the Standard of Ur from Mesopotamia, and it's the oldest known mosaic in existence. The blue stuff is lapis lazuli, and I can't remember what the white stuff is, but I mean they're semi-precious stones, and it's really big. It's like it tells a story of a king, and I don't think you're going to get those sort of stories from me tonight. But it is a beautiful piece, and gives. It's a tribute to the durability of mosaic as an art form. And
The Aztecs went down to Peru?
maybe I got that wrong.
Incans, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's me on Monday panicking.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
we
thank you.
Also,
When you say these are really big, how big?
Well, the Standard of Ur is about the length of this table, but it's not as big. So it's actually it's four-sided. So it's like it's rectangular shaped, and it comes up like this and like that, and it's about this length, maybe a little shorter. And the double-headed serpent is about that size, half the table.
oh wow.
And
That's a lot of pieces.
Oh yeah, well you can see how small it is. That's all turquoise, the blue, and other semi-precious stones. And I actually, for the first time, saw the other side of it when I was researching this. It's actually hollow on the other side. So it's quite three-dimensional. That's not very flat. And that there's a whole room given over to Peruvian art. It's not the only mosaic in there. There's actually mosaics, a human skull that's been added, mosaic pieces added to it. So clearly, and that's more recent again. That's 15th, 16th century. But clearly, it's an art form that has appealed over time to many different.
How would that have been installed? What was
Which one? The Peruvian one?
serpent?
Well, I don't know what they would have used, but no, hang on, I do, because I was reading about it. They use resin, like tree resin.
Was it meant to be a freestanding piece, or
That I'm not sure about. I'm not sure about. I mean, it could have been. I feel like it's too big to be part of a costume, but I think it probably had a religious significance or a storytelling significance, like so many of these things do. But I can find out for you. I mean, you can just bug me about that, and I'll find out what I can about it. It's just I was very fortunate to live near the British Museum for 9 years, and so I saw these pieces more than once, and I was always happy to do that.
It's interesting that the motif, right, from all the way up here, the two-headed serpent.
Yeah.
Which we've got.
Oh yeah, I know, we've got our
and
two-headed
all the way
serpent,
down
yeah.
as well.
Our stories.
It is
Yeah.
Aztec, Mexico, not Peru.
Oh, it's okay. So I got the
Yeah,
location
you got
wrong,
the-
but I got the
yeah.
people right. So I'm half wrong, but the wrong half. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, the British Museum has a great list of all its pieces. I was going to bring my own mosaic. The one on the top right there is a Primavera, which is spring, and it's in a floor in Sicily. And I when I studied Mosaic, that I recreated that piece, and I have it at home. And some people may have seen it because it was in the show I did last year, and at the library at the Foyer Gallery. And anyway, I do love that piece, and I didn't know that it was so elaborate until many years after I actually did it. And I just wanted to compare it to the piece. So Mosaic not here, but he saw the piece of the Empress Theodora. He went to San Vitale, which is a cathedral in Ravenna, Italy, and it's encrusted. It's from 600 AD. It's from the Roman Empire. Anyway, Byzantine. And the piece on the Jesus and the Angels is also from San Vitale. The whole place. I actually have a particular love of mosaic borders, almost, because I find that the faces, the limitations of the art kind of followed the limitations of, say, fresco painting from, the 1600-year-old. What were people painting back then? Some they hadn't gone through the sort of Renaissance period, and so I kind of, sometimes you see a lot of things that you wouldn't necessarily love as art, but you have to admire I admire the technical expertise because those things wouldn't have been made elsewhere and then put into place. Those were made on scaffolds in place, and that Jesus and the Angels is probably 100 feet up. It's a very tall cathedral, and it's like a jewel. It really is, and it has lasted for so long. Ravenna, which is where I studied and made that first Roman copy, is south of Venice on the Adriatic, and it was a capital for the Western Roman Empire for about 100 years because of warfare, and so consequently that was when all these buildings were made, and so it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and Mosaic just was there. So it's too bad he's back, I guess, now?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. All right, well, they're off having fun. And another one, the Doves is also 1600 years old. That's from a baptistry. So a lot of early Christian, just historically speaking, a lot of early Christian sects that were later put down by the official church. It's known as the Arian heresy. Ravenna is interesting as a historical document because they would make these mosaics and create these saints, and then suddenly these saints weren't cool anymore, and they got ripped out and replaced by cool saints. And people were killing each other and all sorts of stuff. And what you might find sometimes is you'll see a mosaic, and then there's a mysterious hand in the middle of the mosaic, and that's from the previous version of the mosaic in Ravenna. I don't think it's the only place that has that, but there's a lot of storytelling in these. And I just wanted to add the lion killing the deer or the antelope, just because I thought it was kind of cool. And also because Fran will recognize the borders on the side, because she made that in December when I did my class. So it's a Roman rope style. Mosaics I love. Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks. So this is also, the one on the right is also San Vitale, and that's the floor in San Vitale. And I threw it in there because when they built that cathedral, they took Roman mosaics and broke them up. And you can see the squares, the mosaic squares in there. Those are Roman mosaics, not they're hundreds of years older than the cathedral. And the rest of all the other squares are marble. So I just thought that was super cool when I saw that. And the Mausoleum of Galla Placidia is also in Ravenna. It's a very small building. The windows are alabaster, and it's just renowned for its border. And the woman that they made it for, who was the mother of an emperor, she was never buried there in the end, but the building still exists, and it's quite extraordinary. And the picture in the middle at the bottom really is just what all of these mosaics are made out of. So that's smelty glass. The best place to buy that still is in Venice, and there are locations all over the place, and they are made, they're made in huge cakes called pizzas of glass, about that thick, and they get chopped up into tiny pieces either by hand with by machine. I just thought it was
Yeah.
useful, and you can see sort of the flesh tones, and the shading and color is as dynamic as paint. It's just very, it's a very slow art form.
And it's not just the surface,
It's through.
It's the whole thing.
Yeah, it's through. It's like a cube,
Mhm.
and they use. I mean, that's the traditional stuff, right? So we have people making mosaic with plates and whatever crockery, broken stuff, or I know people who are making mosaics, who are doing well making mosaics out of plastic, and historically there's a mosaic in the UK that was made out of the teeth of Napoleon's horses taken from Waterloo, and it's in a grotto. Yeah, and it's still there, right? It's in perfect condition because it's teeth, it's horses' teeth, and it's incredible patterns. And I guess somebody just wanted to put that in their garden 200 years ago. So yeah, if it's hard, people will make mosaics out of it. Next one. Thought I'd throw a few Renaissance ones in there. Most of these mosaics, I think almost all of them I've seen myself, and the two on the left are from the baptistry in Florence, which is next to the El Duomo. And I don't know if Mosaic seen that, but I know he was just in Florence. So it's sort of Jesus and also a depiction of hell, lots of fun depictions of hell. Whenever you see these bright yellows around any of these mosaics, that's gold. I mean, if you're in there, you can see the shine.
Like a gold leaf kind of thing? Or
Yeah, gold leaf. Gold leaf smalty. And I think with the baptistry, you can see there's Christ in the center, and then there's lots of layers of humanity and the angels going further up, and like the different storytelling from Christianity. It's again, that's probably it's probably from about 1200, 1300 AD, so very early on in the Renaissance. Santa Maria in Trastevere, which is the Annunciation mosaic there on the right, that's in Rome. And I just wanted to throw it in there because many of you are painters here, so you can compare the detail on that to seeing Renaissance works yourselves of the similar subjects. But I think the big difference usually is that these things are enormous. Like that's probably about 20, 30 feet across, and it's really so that you can work the detail of each individual piece in and get things like the folds of the gowns and the feathers of the angel and that sort of thing. Okay, and then I just thought I'd leap right ahead. There are some amazing mosaic work being carried out, and I'd say the most important center for that, again, is still Italy. There are a lot of schools. There's schools for people like me who can come in for a month, 6 weeks, and get stuff. And I studied there, and I studied in London, in my spare time. And there are also full-time programs, but you seem to need to speak Italian for that, which doesn't surprise me. These are different sources. You may recognize the artist on the bottom right. It's a well-known artist, and he loved making things out of.
I was going to say Chagall, but
It is Chagall, yeah. So it's a mosaic in Ravenna. There's Ravenna also has they have a public park of public art, all mosaic, and then they also have a museum of modern mosaic, and this piece is in that. The one on the left is by a guy from Chicago. Chicago seems to be like...
Chicago's awesome.
Chicago's awesome in so many ways,
Road
but it
trip?
also
Anyone?
seems to be center, like the best mosaic school in North America in my opinion, is in Chicago. And I keep sending them messages asking them to live stream their courses, but they haven't listened to me yet. I think what's cool about the face on the top left is it really gives you a good idea of how a mosaic like that is put together, which is that the pieces for the face and the pieces for anything of detail like that when you want depth, those pieces are so much smaller than the surrounding ones. I just put it in there. I'd never seen it before I started researching. The one on the right, top right, is kind of it's a modern trick of a Roman style, which is to create floors. There's a famous Roman mosaic of the aftermath of a feast. So it's a floor of garbage, but Roman garbage, like so bones and the things that people would have eaten and then thrown on the floor, but somebody made it into a mosaic. And Batcher, who did this one with the skulls, he created his own version, which was he had people throwing candy wrappers on the floor and stuff like that, so he made a mosaic out of that. Of course, it'll last 1,000 years now, and people will be wondering about it.
I love the flip-flops too, just because
So I thought I'd throw a few in from architecture. A lot of people know the Park Güell in Barcelona. So Gaudi, is well known for the mosaics that he made, and they're largely what I call smash plate mosaics. So it's ceramic tile, and so I think he was all about the shape and less about the form of the line of the mosaic. But he's well loved for it. Miro did a mosaic at Wichita State University,
Amazing.
which is pretty
Hysterical.
unexpected. Yeah, and they just very recently restored it, and it's huge. That's the side of a building. And I know that Miro has a lot of large mosaics in Barcelona, but they are more like frescoes. I never saw or murals. I never saw a large mosaic like that by him. Sonia King's an American, and her style is very close. That's fairly typical of her style, like just very colorful. And she basically decorated the whole of the Dallas Children's Medical Center. It's just it's stunning. I mean, she's quite well known. I think she's the let's see there. She's the third lady from the left there on the stairs. And she's well respected and just somebody who's really cool, and we'd be lucky to have a piece from her here. It's like that. There are a lot of good people, but they're kind of spread out. Public art, and these are just certain ones that appeal to me. The three on the right are all just in the New York subway system. New York's been doing some pretty cool things.
Really
with
cool
mosaic.
stuff.
I love the fish. I didn't see the fish until Monday as well. And I just like this one in Pennsylvania, and you can see that the birds are really discernible, and I think he's also included that. With that sort of, you can see plaques with information about each bird species, and I just thought that turned out lovely. But you can see the scale of them, they're huge, right? And that's what tends to happen a lot, just simply because the pieces are relatively big. Scale is very important in mosaic, and so is distance. You'd be working on something really close up, but you have to walk away from it a lot. I mean, you probably see that when you're weaving something too.
Yeah.
I mean, painting is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I haven't been to New York since 1994, and I just feel like going back.
Road trip.
I know.
That's too long.
It is too
money.
long. It is too long.
We need a field trip.
Yeah, let's have a field trip. So I just thought I'd throw some BC mosaics in there. So the one at the Vancouver Public Library fountain no longer exists. And when we had, what's her name, who was here from Vancouver?
It's Heather.
Heather. And I said to her, you're tearing out those pieces of that mosaic.
That's right, yeah.
And I said, I'll buy it. You give it to me. It's because that stuff there is, it's all smalty. And they're sort of large chunks. The pieces were like that in the fountain. That stuff's dead expensive. And I just said, do not just get rid of it. Either that or if you are, give it to me. Because that like what we're looking at there is probably like $20,000 right there. And I don't know a lot about the history of that fountain, but and I wasn't super in love with it. I'm a nerd for details. So, but I thought it was nice and fine, but I'm just kind of more into the lines. So the one in the middle, I took that photo. That's actually a condo in Yaletown.
And that's actually mosaics?
That's Mosaic,
Wow.
and they brought over some Italian guys.
Wow.
And I got invited to a party at this place and went, and I just couldn't get off the ground floor. And I just wanted to say that whole mosaic reaches outside into the pavement. It goes outside the door, and it's the doorstep of the whole building is like that. And I'm just like, oh my God. And then I met the owner the owner is one of the co-organizers of Whistler Pride. And I just said, look, I have to ask, how much is your condo? He said, 1.3. And I was like, okay. Now I know why you have a mosaic on the floor.
What are the strata fees, monthly strata fees?
You didn't get that
The
far.
maintenance, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, it's fresh. It's only a few years old, so I don't think they're
No.
being hit up too much yet, but it'll
I don't want to
happen.
rush you, Catherine, but we.
Oh, okay, sorry. Well,
It's all right, but-
Empress Hotel on the right, we know all about those shapes that were very popular to make a few years ago, and people got the chance to decorate. 3D mosaic is a popular thing. Anyway, that's pretty. And then I feel that West Coast First Nations style of art lends itself well to mosaic because it's two-dimensional very often. And I don't know much about this bear mosaic other than I think it's fabulous. And it's large pieces, right? So it's not tiny pieces like a condo. Okay, unusual ones. Snoop Dogg portrait made in with marijuana cigarettes. I saw that, but well, okay, we'll have that. And another 3D piece that is an actual car covered in mosaic. Yeah, and there's a few. I've seen one or two in Vancouver. People just make things up. And then Jim Boucher again, and I keep going on about him. He started a project to fill in potholes in Chicago with mosaics, and it's actually set him up. It's created his career because people are fascinated, and of course the city of Chicago being helpful dug up a whole bunch of them and pissed people off, and so he's selling t-shirts, he's got books now, and he's just an interesting guy. So you fill it in with flowers and things like that, and yeah.
Don't tell Jonas, but I've always wanted to do a gorilla one of these and just.
Yeah, I think we had that conversation.
Oh, Jonas.
I think we had that
We have.
conversation. But yeah, he's pretty cool. Anyway, thank you, finally did it.
Woo!
And we should, anytime, any chance to advocate for mosaic, it's just so versatile.
It's versatile, and if it's done well and in the right place, it weathers well. Like it stands the test of time.
Yes, yeah.
They were a standard form of art all over the Middle East, all over Europe, all over Mexico.
And a lot of people who are known for art of different kinds, particularly as painters, will pick up mosaic. Like Chagall also did tapestries and things like that. He was very ceramics. Yeah, and a lot of ceramics. Picasso has done mosaic.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
It's just so much. It's so nice to see.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that.
Thank you. Because some people think it's kind of 1950s, 1960s boring, sort of
No,
dated, but
so cool.
yeah, it's not.
Anyone want to do show and tell for next time?
I feel like I'm so.
You're done for a year or two now.
I'm justified. Yeah.
Well, we'll keep it open. So we have Jonas Velaniskis here. He's our Director of Development Services, so planning, building, all that sort of stuff. And we thought we'd have a conversation a little bit about planning process, community menu contributions, all that sort of thing, feeding into public art and what we should be, the goal with new developments and existing neighborhoods in terms of trying to make sure we're integrating. So I don't know, Jonas, do you want to sort of give a little background or?
Yes. Thank you for inviting me to the meeting. So just in preparation of the meeting, we took a bit of a look at the new OCP, and there are a number of things in our new OCP that support this idea of having more public art included in development projects. On two levels. One is, there's new policy that talks about incorporating public art in public as well as private sector development projects. And it refers then to the district public art policy, which I don't know, some of you may be familiar with, but it's...
Shall I circulate that?
It's maybe a bit too bureaucratic, but it allows changes in the policy without having to change the OCP, which is important to us and council because it's a lot less work, it's easier to do. And then there's new development permit area guidelines. So development permits are done for multifamily projects normally, and they apply to the forming...
And some commercial.
Yeah, absolutely.
Business park stuff.
Yeah, essentially anything except for single-family development or some institutional development. So we have new development permit area guidelines, and they guide the form and character of development, and they're also in the OCP. There's 3 new development permit areas. So there's universal guidelines, guidelines that apply to all multifamily developments, and I believe commercial as well. So they're sort of more general, cutting across different forms of development. And then we have development permit area number 4, which is the gateway to downtown, which goes from the highway down to Pemberton Avenue. So that's kind of gateway into downtown. And then we have a development permit area number 5, commercial center, which picks up from Pemberton down to Vancouver, and then I think Loggers Lane and down and across to 4th Avenue. So it's the downtown core, essentially. And all 3 of those development permit areas talk about having public art either encouraged or included in the development.
One thing I thought I'd just mention is one of the recommendations that came out of the committee was we had some language in there about only earth tone, boring colors in all our developments, and Public Art had put a motion forward that we take those out, and they're no longer in there, so.
That's right. Yeah, it was just a different time, I think. Things evolve and communities evolve.
One of the things we had a conversation, and there were some members of the committee on the committee at that time, we had a conversation with Heather Deal, who's a councillor in the City of Vancouver, who heads up their public art committee for council. And one of the things they found was it's relatively easy to get public art in new developments. You can, put in your guidelines, your DP guidelines, and encourage it through a number of means. And they said the challenge they had, and looking for the committee to make sure I get this right, the challenge they had was that all of a sudden you have new developments that are getting all these things. Bike paths, art, the whole sort of vernacular, the whole built environment is of a certain standard, but you don't have any way to sort of bring all those other neighborhoods and communities up to that standard too. So they've sort of set a 2-stream piece where they have obviously a developer is expected to do public art within their development, but there's also a public art funding goes through their public art committee so that we can make sure all communities already existing or new are getting the same opportunity for these assets or these improvements within their neighborhood. So I think that's certainly, what the committee we want to make sure we're, and one of the things with the public art committee is that the money comes in here and then we can make sure we're distributing art throughout the community and not just in new developments.
That's a really good point. Yeah, it kind of sets the two apart if you don't do that. So one of the things that we don't really have is we have a community amenity contribution policy that's going to council. I think it's coming back soon, and that policy does not currently talk about
Tuesday.
Public art. Yes, essentially what we've realized, the district has realized, is we have these critical amenities that we're missing, which is affordable housing, and then things like fire holes and things that are critical to the services that the district provides. And that's where the focus has been of the CAC draft policy. So if we're talking about financial contributions to the public art fund, then I think that would have to come through this policy, through the CAC policy.
Right.
So the policies we have in the OCP now are essentially encouraging it to be included as part of these new developments.
Yeah. I guess the challenge with that is that we have so many infrastructure and facility needs. We just got a strategy back that outlined, I think, $118 million worth of things that we want, we need, and we need to fix. So,
Yeah.
Somewhere in that range. And so often things like public art just don't even get any lip service because the rec center, the fire hall,
Yeah.
the bike lane here, the this, the that, and so unless there's something a little bit prescriptive in there or strategic in there, it's hard because all these littler things get just brushed aside. I don't know if anyone else wants to.
I've got a couple of questions. I was just wondering the thinking behind the special zones in terms of having art around the highway entrance and the downtown. Why not at the Garibaldi place, or why those limitations?
Like I said, the universal guidelines, which is one of the development permit areas, are applicable across the community. And they talk about avoiding large blank walls visible from the street, considering public art and green walls on vertical elements, incorporation of public art installations or creative embellishments in the landscape design. So those would apply across the community. But they again would be located on the development.
New development.
Yeah. And we can't mandate public art through our bylaws. We can encourage it. That's kind of the nature of the OCP. They're supposed to be guidelines. With the community amenity contribution policy, when it's a rezoning, it's a bit different. And I think maybe on the large projects, that's where those projects could potentially contribute financially to the public art fund, as well as doing things on the development.
But what I understood is that in fact, in the community amenity package that's coming before council, that public art is not included in that.
No, it has a very specific focus on critical amenities and affordable housing.
And critical amenities are.
I thought they were general amenities. I thought we called them general amenities.
I think that's changed now to critical,
Well,
which
I
would be
haven't seen that
the,
yet, so.
well,
Yeah.
and I haven't had a recent look at it either,
Yeah.
but I think there's things like fire halls, new municipal hall.
Is there not a provision for park? That you have to have a certain park or a contribution in
There
the
is,
park?
yes, you're absolutely right. There's provision for active transportation and park improvements as
And
well.
is that in the amenity bylaw, or is that in the?
It's in the amenity policy.
I don't understand, this
Me
is
neither.
my bias, why, parks and trails, which are absolutely critical, and I get it, I think that's important, but I think art is important too.
Yes.
So one of the things the committee can consider is a motion through to council to consider public art as part of
An amenity package.
an amenity package, or at least part of something that CACs can be applied to. So there's inclusive language that specifically outline it, as opposed to no language that even addresses it.
Yeah. So at least then the ideas are.
Sid?
Was the interim policy before this other policy reference public art specifically? I recall that it might have, but
I don't think it did. I think we just had like 5% general amenities, so in
Okay.
theory it could apply in there, but it wasn't specified.
Yes, I think it was 20% general amenities, and then 5% childcare, and the rest of it for affordable housing. So general amenities could capture public art for sure.
I would just like to see it at least listed as being a benefit to the community.
I guess the question is, how do we get to a point where particularly in a rezoning application, where there's a land lift and there's a significant amount of money being made, how do we at least, can we embed a variety of amenities within that? You've got to put a pipe in the road, you've got to put roads in of certain standard, blah, blah, blah. Why can't we there needs to be depending on the size of the development, X amount of public art or in the project too? Like, why can't we embed it in?
Well, I think the OCP is going to do that.
Okay.
I think the policy says incorporate public art in public and private sector development projects in line with district public art policy.
So in theory, I'm just trying to get my brain around it. If a DP came to council and there's no public art in it, it technically might not meet the guideline, and we can say it doesn't meet the guideline.
So the guidelines will say, for instance, for the universal guidelines, consider public art and green walls on vertical elements.
So so if council were to determine that there's no public art, we could say doesn't meet the guideline.
Well, the question would be, have you considered it, and is there a good reason why you?
And then council has the
couldn't do it?
discretion to say your reason's not good enough, you don't meet the guidelines.
Yeah, I think there's some vagueness in there. I mean, the development permit process is the lawyers will always tell you there are only guidelines, you know, and you can't take them literally. They're supposed to guide you, but the developers don't have to meet word for word every single thing. in there.
Technically they don't, yeah.
You know, we've used them as pretty strict guidelines. And then in lots of cases, there's, you know, certain guideline doesn't apply in a certain location and there's practical reasons for it. But I think with larger developments particularly, there really isn't a reason why not.
Are they generally set up as terms and conditions of any development, especially the large developments?
Like through rezoning, you can embed those things in. For example, the oceanfront, there was a certain percentage of, whether it was in Lands End Monument or public art, was embedded in the
Yes.
land sale
development.
agreement and the
Yeah.
land development agreement. Similar large developments will make that. I just always find it's tokenism for the extent of the development, right? Like I think the oceanfront was $150,000 on a $1 billion project. You know, like I'm sure they will implement more than just that in the built environment, but it was pretty token.
It was, and it was a different time, right? We're now kind of inundated with
It was 2
development.
years ago, you know.
Yes.
Nice try, but.
But a lot of things
Yeah,
have
no, it
changed.
was a different time,
A lot
yeah.
of things have changed,
Yeah.
I would say. There's other projects too. The Sirocco project on the channel will have to do with public art.
Mhm.
And I think it's gonna come here and get vetted before it gets implemented. Mistral, which is the project that's up there, you know, they're installing, their bike racks are made by a local artist, kind of,
Christina, yeah.
yeah. You know, there's 2 developments in the pipeline, the golf course and the Pac West, that if those get approved, there will be public art in there as well. So it is happening, but it is
Mhm.
kind of not mandated.
Yeah, it would be good to figure out if we could get some policy and direction from this group to see how we can help to make it just an expectation as opposed to a piece of.
Yes. I think the challenge would be for some of those smaller developments, you know, the first question I could see coming back is, what do you want? I'll do whatever you want. Tell me how to do it. Tell me who to hire. You know, so that's when we do those policy changes, we need some advice from this group in terms of how do we guide people into public art.
Any other questions for Eunice?
No, I just was thinking that on the plus side, we've spent the last 3 years now working on processes for that, you know, so if there is a relationship that's created where we can connect with developers, at least we've started pulling in together a system whereby how we get submissions and how we consider what we can bring in. So I think, I mean, I would assume that would be a useful thing for people to know about and a useful way for us to contribute to what the developers want to do and what the council wants to do.
And then ensure that the planning staff is having those proactive conversations with the development community
So
and
that at least
talking
we don't
about
feel
this
like there's
committee
nothing,
and,
we don't know anything, and
yeah.
it seems like an important role.
The other piece that I would like to ask is there provision when you're actually reviewing plans, development plans, that kind of thing, that even if there isn't an art piece going to be installed right away, there is space that is designed so that public art at a future date can in fact be installed in a sidewalk setback or
A wall or a,
whatever,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
looking at the,
even if the developer's not saying, then the public art committee can say, hey, we've got a wall,
And we've got
some
an
money,
artist and we've got a
or we've got
project.
we've got this square footage, or we've got, yeah.
Can you say that again? Sorry, I've just called up the public art policy, which has community amenity contribution language in it, but it is all voluntary.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
that-
all CACs are voluntary.
So is council approval is voluntary
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
Do it. My thought was that when people are designing, like walkways, sidewalks, are we looking at those from a public art place that we can actually install public art, even if we don't have the money right now to do it, but we have little pullouts that would be a fabulous place to have a wall and have a mural on it.
Or even pop-up art too.
Or pop-up art, those kinds of things too. It's not immediately saying that
Yeah.
public art is going to be there as part of the financing, but that we're thinking to the future that in fact there are artists around and we want to support them and we need to have locations. And some of them may in fact not have to be on District of Squamish parkland.
yeah, so in the new OCP, it does have some provision for that, because it states incorporate public art and arts infrastructure in public and private sector development projects.
So that's arts infrastructure.
That would be arts
basically.
infrastructure,
Cool.
yes.
Yeah, that's
So that the planners can have those conversations now with the developers to help guide that as they go through the process.
Yes, and it's certainly a really good reminder for us because we've been very focused on affordable housing, active transportation,
Yeah.
and some of those critical amenities. So it's a good reminder that, there's other things out there.
Any other, yeah, go ahead, Sue.
I'm just curious if there's any other cities or that could be looked at that might have a really good representation how they do public art integrated with their developments in public sector out there. I mean, that we could look at. And
Chicago.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
yes.
That with maybe relatively similar budget sizes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
If the committee, I guess we can do this through Deb, and if the committee has even some suggestions or some ideas, just to funnel them through Devin to you, if something comes up about, hey, like, we'd love to see more mosaics, just as an example. Keep that in your top of mind as you talk to, so the committee can sort of, maybe just indirectly sort of communicate with planning department to see, meet some objectives in terms of the diversity of type of art and where we might say, hey, we really think North Yards is underrepresented in terms of the built environment. How can we'd like to find a place there to, so we just have to make sure we have that communication through Devin too. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah, and I thought the mosaic form lends itself really well to development because you can embed it in
It does,
sidewalks, walls.
Yeah, it's timely that you were here for that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just great to talk about.
You know, I almost thought I should let Jonas go first and let him go home and see his kids and his wife, and I thought, no. I'm making him sit through the mosaics.
Well, thanks for making me go fast.
Wasn't there some sort of, or maybe this was a suggestion to some developers, but wasn't at some point there a percentage that was kind of, a suggested amount that they should be spending on public art? Like, is there?
Yes.
Is that?
There was, I think it was 1%.
1%, yeah.
Has,
I think it's actually in the policy.
I think it's actually in the policy. Does
Yeah, it ended up being 1% of our capital budget instead of 1% of developer contribution, but the original conversation was about, but it was then I think it was hard to determine exactly what 1% of what is.
Yeah, I think it was 1% of
One of
construction
their
cost.
profit or cost, yeah, so it was
Yes.
Yeah, the construction cost.
1% for public art, allocated. Squamish departments will identify and prorate public art allocation based on all restricted and unrestricted funds. That's different. Yeah, I don't think it ever actually got in there. I think there was conversation about it, but it was almost too hard to figure out because
And that kind of thing should be, I think, in the community amenity contribution policy.
Yeah, I think so too. Maybe over the next meeting or two, we'll put our minds to, if we want to have a recommendation to council on some quantification, specific quantification within the CAC policy. And maybe we'll do a little digging on what other communities are doing.
And maybe I'm a little confused by this, but the details here seem to be optional. You were saying developers aren't obliged to do this. Is that, am I correct?
So according to the legislation, we can't make any developer really do anything above and beyond. So we always call our community amenity contributions voluntary.
Okay, voluntary.
Community amenity contributions. However, as Meg points out, rezoning is voluntary.
Yeah.
And so we've essentially said, to meet the mark, there's an expectation of a certain voluntary community amenity contribution to be considered for, as part of the rezoning program.
And when Joe Blogs puts in to put up a new development, is that expectation expressed to them?
I don't know, Jonas. I suspect it is.
Yes,
Yes.
it is. On certain projects, there's certainly other projects that are just not big enough.
Right.
But on certain projects, certainly, and we have a list of them. So it is something that we consider.
Yeah.
I think lately we've been so focused on active transportation.
For sure, and I respect
Housing,
that. I respect
that
for
I
sure.
think we've gone away from that.
Yeah, and it's almost all on residential, it's not necessarily
Yeah.
commercial development.
I mean, I totally respect the need for important infrastructure and amenities, and God knows, I think Squamish has a long list. But I'm just trying to figure out if there's a way to make it, if not mandated, a little bit more front and center for people to go, yeah, this is wonderful, we also want the place to look beautiful.
Yeah. People,
Whatever
we kind of complain about our situation here. From a community point of view, we're actually way better off than most. I was talking to Mayor Brain in Prince Rupert. They have a $280 million deficit and half our population. So, like compared to other communities, we always complain about our own stuff, but generally speaking, we have a strategy, and it's bad, but it's not that bad compared to other places. Anyway.
We're also really lucky because we're in a high demand now.
Yes.
Everybody wants to build here, so that
Yes.
puts our
We have
council
opportunity.
in a driver's seat,
Yeah.
so.
And I find that
Make hay while
often,
the sun shines.
Yeah, it's a bit of,
when a community is in a situation like that they don't make the most of it.
it's true.
And so I encourage us to make the most of it.
It's hard to know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not easy.
Yeah, we have our CAC, a new CAC policy coming next week, I think, or the week
So.
soon. And it's essentially, we had our very first CAC policy only 2 years ago, if that. We're basically doubling the expectation now, and we're probably still low with our new CAC policy, so.
Yeah, I think, when growth hit Squamish, we had a lot of policy gaps, and that's normal. For when you don't have growth, a lot of growth, you don't really need policy to
Assessment,
guide it.
intervention, yeah.
Whereas we've been working now on filling all those gaps. We're slowly getting there.
Unless there's something else for Jonas, I'll let him go.
All right.
Thanks, Jonas.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Pam.
But I just had an idea. What if, as a committee, we vetted particular projects? What if we had a selection of, let's say, top 5 projects that we potentially would love to see in Squamish from a public art perspective, and we had vetted them through the committee, and they sat in a kind of a
Binder or
TBD, to be determined
Here's
where
our
and when,
list.
on what budget, but here's a package, and when you're going through the planning process and you're dealing with developers who are very busy and, are trying to put their structures in, if you were able to say, well, project 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, have a look. If you like them, perhaps you could
implement, you know,
Yeah.
they're ready to go. We found the artist, we found the theme, we found the,
And I think we can almost start doing that through some of, if we start doing these competitions and we have a winner, but we have a couple that are really, really good, we can say, we'll put them in a binder and say, here's a bunch of projects that Public Art Committee think are great, worthwhile doing.
and it facilitates that whole
That's
task
a
for
good
the
idea.
developer.
Yeah.
I know
That's great.
years ago when I was on the ADP committee, we had, I think it was the president of the Arts Council sat on the ADP committee, so there was a bit of a, that voice at the ADP table about public art, and it was Christine Edgett, and she was all about the art doors. Is there an art door in your product? It's an art door. And there's a few art doors around town now, but I'm wondering if it's worthwhile having either Arts Council member or a member of this committee sit on ADP.
I think
Think about
that'd be really good, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll deliberate on that one. And ADP is actually kind of an interesting committee. It sees all the development permit applications, so all the buildings before they even come to council and vet architecture, landscaping, how, do they meet our guidelines? You know, that whole conversation about what the built environment, what it looks like, before it even comes to council for consideration.
How often do they meet?
Once a month, usually a 2-hour meeting once a month, usually Thursday,
I think it's
The third-
every third
Thursday.
Yeah.
We, given the load of development, there have been months where we have more than one meeting,
Mhm.
but generally it's once a month.
And it could be that it's an appointment and an alternate from either, I don't know, maybe we have a conversation with Sydney, either the Arts Council or Public Art Committee.
We have them in
They're just doing their job.
I know, Sarah. Anyway, maybe the committee will have a thought about that, but from your point of view, that would be a welcome addition?
Oh, I think so. I think that'd be fabulous to have a member of arts represented there.
That'd be great, okay, awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we are on major projects. So I think everyone got the email.
Is there any follow-up?
On this?
Yeah. for-
Sure, we can do it now or at roundtable.
oh, whatever.
Why don't we just save it for roundtable? We'll try to get through the agenda a bit and, so, I just don't want to get too sidetracked without sort of dealing with the business of the day. So as you know, Sydney, in concert with the district, got $25,000 from Van City. And they seem really open to the next phase as well. So I think that really puts us into the realm of two significantly funded proposals. One in the $60,000 range and the other in the potentially $70,000 or $80,000 range. So that's really cool. And I think obviously now we can at least go ahead with the first phase, which was the Squamish, the First Nations specific artist project.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so we put 35, we got another 25, so that's 60, and then we have 52 remaining, depending on what I think, you know, now that we know that, is anybody listening? Now that we know that Squamish Savings is interested in helping out with the next one, it could be that we want to augment this one or leave it there, and if we see a project that needs a little latitude and we want to spend we have a little bit more flexibility to maybe augment that number a little. Maybe we don't necessarily put it out there to begin with, but we have some wiggle room if we want to say, hey, you know what? We'd really like to put it here, but it costs more for this cement structure to put it on. We have a little bit of more money to be able to facilitate that maybe. Anyway, just, it's nice having a little wiggle room on the budget. So Devin, do you want to?
So, last meeting, we came to, we edited the part one of a two-part initiative on truth and reconciliation geared towards Squamish and two. Artists, and so that was updated based on your feedback and circulated to Mayor and Catherine this week for feedback and to finally go out, especially
I
now
don't
that.
think I got back to you yet.
Yeah, I haven't either. It's just, I was already.
I don't remember when I got it. When did I get it?
Monday.
Monday
Yeah.
afternoon, yeah. And so now we're back to review and to go over part 2 of the 2-part initiative on truth and reconciliation. Call to Canadian artists, truth and reconciliation. Let's go through it again like we did last time, and I'm still looking for some more input specifically under vision, but we can get to that as we work through it. I'm really good at laying out process. I'm not really great at laying out vision and.
Okay. So should we go over this one just so we can get this one out? This is,
No, there's only one.
sorry, do we have this one that you sent out on Monday for everybody?
No, I didn't.
Well, we went through that last meeting.
We went through that last meeting.
So
and
we think we're pretty much dialed on that one?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
the direction was for, yeah,
Yes.
Us just to fine
correct
tune it. Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll finish that up this
Reading
week.
it, really.
exactly,
Okay. Okay, cool. So you want to go over this one now?
correct.
Okay. Why don't we, Kelsey, we're just gonna recess for 5 minutes to let everyone read this. Okay? So should we just go through this sort of almost paragraph by paragraph
Yeah,
and
you
just
bet.
work it down? So first up is, it looks like we have 52 in our bank account, and I think we are hoping to maybe get at least another 25 contribution. So I'm wondering if do you think 65K and then it gives us 10 to play with? And maybe it's up to 65K. Hey, welcome.
Hi.
Hi, Sarah.
Come on over.
You're welcome to sit here.
Anywhere. Yeah. We're just going over the second phase 2 of the reconciliation, truth and reconciliation call to artists. So do you think 60, or should we go with 60 again, or do you think 65K? What do you think? We have 52.
Was it 60 that was on
We-
the first one?
We have 60 on the first one, so our 35 and their 25. We have 52 left in our bank account in theory for this specific project. It'd be nice to leave a little bit of like a $10,000 wiggle room in case we want to say, we want to add this to one project, you know, some wiggle room on the budget on either side
Yeah.
maybe. So should we go with 60 again? And-
Does it make a difference in terms of who the artists are that get attracted by that $5,000 make a difference?
I don't think 5 makes a difference.
No.
But if
I'd
it was
like to see
100
more.
versus 60,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I'd like to see
Yeah.
more too. And if we got more from our source, that would be great too. They said yes to 25 so fast, it was like, damn. Won't make that mistake twice.
Do they know that this is in 2 stages,
Mhm,
2 parts?
yeah.
And that we're looking for funding for the second part?
So their response was really excited to help fund the first one. Send a second submission in because we want to consider that one too.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, it sounded very positive. I think they sound really excited about the whole idea of it.
So at the present time, without that prospect of more from them, we definitely have how much in the kitty?
52.
52 at the most.
And we haven't technically spent any of the small,
Correct.
the 15. So we have a 15 small projects one that we can either not spend or spend.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where we're building our maintenance kitty up to now, because we've been throwing 10 grand a year into that. Yeah, I'm not sure finance quite figured that out in the first year,
Yeah, I was
but
wondering about that.
I'll look into that.
theoretically, there should be 30 grand in there, because I don't think we spent any yet of the maintenance one. I'm wondering if we keep that blank for now,
Yeah,
we make our second submission,
yeah.
and hopefully hear back fairly soon on what that might be, and then we can fill in,
Yeah, something
Fill it
more
in.
accurate.
yeah,
Do we have a sense of what we would like it to be? 100.
Yeah. Thanks, Rosemary.
100,
Yes.
so we need another 50.
No, but it's good to know roughly, you know, like what we would,
Because this is
To make
supposed
this
to be the
really-
bigger of the two, isn't it?
I don't think you guys have been specific when you said that, but it has felt that way
Yes,
through the dialogue.
yeah.
That, I was
More
thinking it was
important.
bigger.
Yeah.
And more collaborative, like more than one
Substantially
artist likely
bigger.
involved,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
okay, well, let's that's the proposal we'll submit. Sydney, does that sound good?
So we'll just leave that blank.
If you have any questions, if you're feeling a little lost in the conversation, just
Oh, yeah, sorry,
interrupt
I was
me.
at T-ball.
Very important. Okay, so let's put 100 in there for now, and we won't finalize it obviously today, but that's what we'll base our request to our partner in this.
What is our goal in terms of putting this out for call, like date-wise? Does that could determine how much funding is potentially possible?
I totally up to the committee. I don't know if there's a massive rush, if it's a month from, 2 months from now, or, I don't think there's a massive rush, because I think if we get one of these out, followed up with another proposal called 2 or 3 months down the road,
Give us
then,
time to get the funding sorted out.
yeah. What are you thinking, Sydney?
I'm just thinking if like there's other non-private sources available as well, but they need like a 4-month turnaround to do signal those, so, yeah, just in case. Yeah. Yeah, just in case.
would we be in a good position with having, say, half of the thing to take advantage of some of those other funding opportunities?
Maybe, because, yeah, it doesn't hurt, for sure. I wouldn't say it would jeopardize if you didn't have that in application. But if you applied to someone like Canada Council, then their application process is about 4-month turnarounds on standards, so, plus the time to apply if it's not.
So that would put it into September hearing back? It's
Yeah.
not- I mean, that's not a terrible timing.
Okay, I can look into it.
Lets this one get well underway, and
It also gives us some time to go to Pamela Goldsmith.
yeah, some
because
other sources, yeah.
The feedback from her was that we should have it written and then go to her, as I recall.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Yep.
Are we hoping to have it done, so if there was a year process between selection and completion, that's not unreasonable? Because I'm just thinking doing a large scale outdoor project in the winter is negative fun. It can also be quite
It
difficult.
depends what it is, yeah.
It totally depends on what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
There's also the thought, and look at the committee for their ideas on this. If we put in the proposal, please apply with a $50,000 project and a scaled up $100,000 project. That's a lot more work on the applicants, but at least it allows the committee to have the two proposals. So if we get a more funding, we can go proposal B, but if we don't, we have proposal A to choose from. That's an idea.
Have you seen that type of strategy before in some of these types of things, or?
I'm probably not the best person to ask for artist calls at the table, so maybe if anyone else has seen anything like that,
I mean, it can't be done.
Yeah, and maybe it's not so much put in two proposals, just keeping
It's just more
scalability,
scale.
It's a lot of work for artists
keep,
that are-
Yeah.
keep scalability in mind as project funds
And
are also scalable.
Yeah.
And they don't have to propose a site until they're at the final stage?
And it could be that it gets shortlisted, then we work with the artists, and there may be a small stipend involved with that process. Work with the artists depending on, to meet the budget or to meet the opportunity that may present itself through the budget.
That's a good approach, I think, in terms of starting at what we know we have and then putting up, saying, and that choosing the artist who comes through the committee, enjoys the project, and then scale it up if the opportunity's there.
Yeah.
I would-
Yeah, so maybe that just becomes a criteria that to keep in mind as artists submit the scalability of it, like gear your budget towards X, but keep in mind.
Is the project scalable?
Yeah. Or not just scalable in terms of just make it bigger, but is it scalable in terms of make it other pieces that might add on to it? So scalability might not be the only word that articulates that. Everyone okay with that general direction? It's okay. I swear to God, it's like refrigerator over my desk all the time in this room. So just everyone, page 2 now. Was the introduction, was the first paragraphs meant to be, we've done part 1 and sort of a brief explanation? So I think we just need a little bit of wording tweakage as like part 1 of this 2-part initiative, blah, 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 was on creativity of Indigenous artists. This closed June 1st.
Oh, okay.
And maybe just a link saying, here's the page for that phase of the project. And then this call is for part 2, which invites proposals, just to make it a little more clear.
Sure.
That we've already done part 1 and that this is part 2.
Sure.
And then the background just further explains it. I guess you think we should have a vision statement of some kind here, or?
I would be looking for feedback from the committee. I feel like it needs something.
Go ahead, Meg.
Yeah.
I really like the introduction. A goal of this initiative is to celebrate the creativity and healing power of arts under the theme of truth and reconciliation.
Yep.
I kind of like that as a really wide
Okay.
Yeah.
objective as opposed to like a vision.
Okay.
And for me, and I guess we're looking for all of us to feed into what it means to us so we can sort of coalesce it, is, for me, it's something that moves us along the conversation and moves the dial on understanding and collaboration and that type of thing. Like it provokes conversation, it provokes change in mindset. I mean, if we want to be so direct, we're looking for something that helps people's consciousness move in a certain direction. So,
maybe we could identify keywords, just brainstorm, like I'm thinking kind of words like connection, validation, reflection, that might, if we just created kind of a pool of words there for Devin that she could then, you know, that would kind of provide the tone and the intention. I don't know.
This is-
I mean,
this is a-
healing, I agree, Meg.
this is a building block to healing,
Yeah.
to speaking truth to history, to reconciling the past. Any other thoughts on? Yeah, go ahead.
Me?
Oh, I thought you were.
Well, I'm in a bit of a dilemma. I think I'm going to submit to this, and I'm just wondering if I should be leaving the room now.
No, because then I'd be here alone. No, I think at this point, as long as it's like this is the group's vision of the call, I think the recusal comes when you submit,
Yeah,
you know,
I
you
just didn't
submit
want to
something.
speak forward now and try to.
Oh, you're about to say it should be a
Well-
mosaic festival? Excuse me.
No, it's fine. I just-
tile work completely.
It's a big mosaic.
Lots of mosaic, lots of people with mosaic. Yeah, I just didn't want to feel like giving suggestions and then thinking later on
It
that it might
tailors to
seem
your-
like I was
Oh,
directing.
now we know.
And I don't think we want to be so specific here that it is directional. It's
Yeah,
more
Yeah.
For sure, I just felt like
Yeah.
I should speak up. Yeah.
that the project should speak to what the goals are. And I think this goal and vision statement, particularly on this one, because the other one I think is pretty clear. We want a First Nation artist, submit it, pay them, put something spectacular up and honor that. This one is much more conceptual, and I think we may want to go back to, we'll talk to Alice about this, but we may want to go back to some sort of, yeah, that's great language and that works. Like, we need to vet it a little bit through Alice's, either through Alice or through some people at the Nation or through the elders or something there. So I think we want to check back definitely with the Nation on the language, particularly in this vision
Yeah.
statement piece.
It should be inspiring, it should really, it's a very important paragraph that we're putting in.
Yeah.
It should be about resilience and also a little bit based on our meeting with the elders, you know, about celebration, hope for the future.
Yeah. We do have language within, a tiny bit of language within the OCP on truth and reconciliation. Maybe we can just look at that, Devin, and see how that's articulated. And we actually, originally when we were doing the OCP, had a lot of First Nations relationship context in there. And the Nation actually said, we'd like you to not go so deep dive in the OCP in that. We'd like to have a separate sort of appendix document that is very specific to that relationship and truth and reconciliation. And then we've got accords and protocol agreements and servicing, all that other stuff too, but we sort of decided to take it out of the OCP, and that's yet to be finalized, but there's a little bit of language in the OCP, is there not?
Half page.
Yeah.
When are we looking to complete this vision and get this out, not in the next month? I don't know.
No, I
I
think
thought you guys had just talked about 3 to
3 to 4 months, I think, we try to find other funding sources, so we have some time to work on this.
So, like, why doesn't everybody, come up with a sentence or whatever, if you want to, and then we can just kind of combine what you have in your language documents, and then edit that.
Sounds good. My experience is when I send people away to do homework from committees, they don't want to do their homework.
Well, that's okay, if you don't want to.
Yeah.
If you don't want to, then that's okay. If you want to, then do it, right? So.
Yeah, okay.
And send it to whom?
me.
Do you see this call or this project going out to non-native, non-indigenous?
Anybody.
Good.
I don't know if we want to be overly
Native?
prescriptive in that.
Well,
I think how we
Bristol,
judge them,
yeah.
we may have a bit of a criteria we're looking at.
Yeah.
Collaboration, we'll put that in there. We're looking for collaborative with First Nations, but I think it's a very big universal issue too that we
Oh,
want to
it's
make
Canadian,
local,
yeah.
right?
I was gonna put this one on BC bid.
Yeah.
Just as a,
I think,
So,
I
yeah.
think we want to see what we can get. We obviously are judging our adjudication process. It's going to be sensitive to all those local issues and
Yeah.
what our goals are locally. But I think we want to, we kind of want to put a wide net out there, I think.
I was mentioning to Anne when we drove down, has anybody heard of the call for entry online cafe?
yes, coffee cafe?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's another possibility.
yeah, totally.
Post it on
I've
that.
kind of been collecting them off the side of my desk,
Yeah.
just jotting them down as to go out
Okay.
when we, yeah.
Okay.
Does anyone want me to read this stuff in the OCP on First Nations?
Yeah, please.
Strengthening cooperation and mutual support by working collaboratively with First Nations toward respective community goals and objectives is vital to fostering more resilient and connected communities. This important work involves a collective journey towards reconciliation, as well as revisiting and creating new government-to-government protocols and processes based on a meaningful engagement respecting matters of mutual interest. The OCP gives voice to the community's vision to be inclusive and respectful of all while supporting and enabling citizens to thrive. The importance of truth and reconciliation and honoring and strengthening relationships with Aboriginal peoples is vital to this effort. It begins with acknowledging the profound impacts of Canada's colonial history and residential school system on local Aboriginal people, their families and communities, both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal. This system was part of a larger policy and process of assimilation for over a century, in which Aboriginal peoples were subject to what can be described as cultural genocide, the destruction of the political and social structures and practices of a group. The district is committed to initiate a long-term journey towards truth, healing, and reconciliation in Squamish as part of a larger region of reconciliation, one that is connected to a national movement for reconciliation in Canada. Reconciliation calls for a reframing of individual and collective relationships citizens hold with Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people based upon our shared history, a process expected to span many generations. The district supports reconciliation and healing efforts, engagement and partnerships to build strong relationships with First Nations, founded in respect and recognition of Aboriginal rights and title, culture, and heritage. And then there's objectives and policies and community planning with First Nations, objectives and policies on that front.
Just for consideration, can we put what you've just read out as an appendix to this?
Absolutely, yeah, that's exactly.
Because I really think that kind of lays out how this fits into an overall strategy and scheme.
No, absolutely.
It doesn't even have to be an appendix,
cut
I
and
can
paste.
just,
Yeah, we'll put it from our OCP, these are the, the clear foundational objectives of the community. Go ahead.
Let me just be a pain, because if it's done as an appendix, it makes it stand out and it can be referenced, but it doesn't create a longer proposal call.
Yeah.
That being said, you guys are artists, I'm not. I mean, do we want a concise proposal call, or do we want it so it's longer with it included? It doesn't matter to me. It's just, I give to you guys.
I would hope an artist making an application to a $100,000 program would just do all the research they should be doing.
It just makes it nice to actually have it there, and there's no excuse then, oh, we didn't see it.
Yeah, no, I think either way, I don't know if it matters if it's an appendix or it's right in there. Either way, that information is in there, Okay. So that's, I think, the start of the vision, but if anyone else has any specifics on how we would like to use the goals as outlined in the OCP, public art to meet the goals, like maybe just think about that specific tie a little bit more.
I think in my opinion, it does have to have some sort of connection to contemporary art. You know, this is a growing city. It's, prides itself in innovation, in terms of livability and all those things. We're acknowledging the past, but we're also, it's part of that journey, and that we're
Looking
journeying
to the future.
moving towards the future, and I don't know. It's got to be something that's, we need to be thinking ahead, right? Is this going to be relevant in 10, 20 years?
Yeah.
Are we going to look at this piece and go, wow,
That's part of that journey, isn't it?
And that's certainly part of our adjudication process too. Okay. We have a foundation, I think, for that. Okay. Eligibility, any thoughts on this one? Do you have this in front of you?
I don't, but
Oh,
Sydney's got one.
there's one.
There's extra.
You can take this one.
Is this open to other artists, or is it Canadian?
Well, I think it's highlighted for a question. I kind of want to make it open to everyone, but that's just me, just to see what kind of perspective.
We did the second stage to building bridges paddling the
Oh, yeah.
canoe with
Yeah.
Kathy Camilleri. And as First Nations, they don't recognize traditional boundaries as in Canada, US. And so it just, I highlighted that because of my own education. And I just thought it was an interesting point.
Well, it's a global issue. It really is a global issue. We have our history based on our governments and government policies over a century or so. But as you say, the boundaries, Squamish Nation has relatives in Washington State.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thanks.
I was just wondering if we're actually applying to the Canada Council or to somebody else for funding, then this might become important whether it's
Yeah.
or not. But maybe what we should do is just leave it wide open and see who comes through the door.
I kind of want to open it up and see if we get some international.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see a collaboration with it, I think the more restrictions we put on it, the harder artists are going to find those pieces that will work for them to make an interesting submission. I don't know, maybe I'm...
I think if we were at that crossroads and where we did get a funding award and it had to be a Canadian specific artist, we could determine that through our adjudication. It could inform our adjudication process rather than inform our proposal.
The artists aren't obliged to work with Indigenous artists, like it could be some kind of, European has done their research or...
It's up to the committee.
Yeah, or should we have language that says, a meeting of the artist with the Indigenous community of the Sea to Sky, or specifically the Squamish Nation, is encouraged, or, that's something I've just been wondering about. Or is it supposed to be the artist's interpretation of what truth and reconciliation is from their perspective?
It's an interesting question.
It is an interesting question, and
Well, it's been something that's been niggling at me.
I don't know if we can frame it to say, here are some things that will obviously be part of our evaluation, but none of them are necessarily excluding you from the evaluation.
So you think of an artist in Eastern Europe who may have lived through the communist era, and they will have a very different experience about what truth and reconciliation is, or a South African artist, or it's just something I've been wondering about.
I mean, that would be a really cool collaboration if
It would be
a South African artist coming from an apartheid background, which was based on what we did here, collaborates with First Nations artists in Canada. I mean, it could be a pretty interesting, provocative thing. So, but I guess the question is, do we insist that part of it is Canadian, or do we just open it up to anybody, interpretation, and I guess if I may just finish this thought, is the process the important part here, or is the outcome the important part here? Meg.
You just sidetracked me beautifully.
I knew I would, so that's why I said it. I can go to Heidi.
I just think it's a really interesting thought to have wide open and to see, because there's so much. I was just listening again to the history of Kanye West, and the slaves and all that kind of stuff, and I was thinking, wow, the intergenerational issues that they're dealing with, compared to the intergenerational issues that we're dealing with here, or Aboriginal, Indigenous people are, and the similarities. I mean, there's huge differences as well, but the similarities as well. The opportunities for increased understanding of what does that mean, I think would be really pretty cool to look at it collaboratively.
Anyone think we should restrict it to Canadian artists, or are people open to anything from anybody, really?
Will we be open to criticism?
Well, that's part of the consideration.
The Public Art Committee in Calgary faced this kind of an issue with a major project that they had recently in the last few years.
We
And,
talked about it at the committee
yeah.
hearing.
And you're right, because, I mean, they've got a whole mess of issues with their public art policy, but prior to the unveiling was, they had a previous unveiling, and the criticism of that was that the artist had been from New York.
Maybe a
That's-
collaboration.
I guess the other question that I have, if this is Truth and Reconciliation, and we're working here, what's the role of the elders in terms of our adjudicational process?
Well, I think we should get to how the committee functions in the adjudication process. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, I'm trying to remember what what we did in the past sort of with the branding and stuff was we kind of came up with a determination. We went to the elders for blessing, and that's how Swacia had sort of articulated how we'd probably do it here. That maybe the elders weren't necessarily going to be part of picking, but they would be
Can
sanctioning.
we make sure that Swacia is part of that picking process?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, so, yeah.
Yeah,
And it may-
the only challenge is if her brothers make submissions, but,
Or an alternative kind of thing. It's just because it's Truth and Reconciliation is the theme, I would just feel better.
We have
if
to,
there was
for sure.
Some really solid relationship there.
and I think that's a whole conversation that the committee will have at a future meeting to sort of really
Yeah.
iron out exactly how we're gonna do that process, particularly as phase one applications come in, and we're gonna have to get that dialed. So just quickly on eligibility, do we want
Let's take
to?
off Canada.
Yeah, I think we take off Canada, but maybe we say collaborations are encouraged.
Yeah, collaborate, like Heidi, is that what you were gonna say?
Yeah,
Is
just do
that
collaborations.
that it can be a non-Canadian artist, but that a collaboration with a Canadian
Yeah.
artist if you're not.
Or maybe it's not even encouraged, or maybe, maybe we just simply say, you know, projects will be vetted on a variety of criteria and list them. Collaboration, local context, maybe we just sort of list a couple of them. And not all of them necessarily, but these are some of the
Right.
things we'll be,
Yes,
the
yeah,
lens through which we'll be looking at this.
I think it's important
Yeah.
because an artist from another, speaking as someone who's written about Indigenous issues for foreign press, I can't begin to tell you how clued out the European press
Oh,
is
yeah.
about this subject, and that if somebody's going to come in from that sort of milieu and apply,
Yeah.
they need to do some work, or else we're going to get some stuff that might actually quite appall us. Sorry, but it's my experience.
Yeah.
I
So,
always felt like I was reinventing the wheel every time I wrote a piece for The Guardian.
so does the committee generally think, if we sort of say it's open to anybody, however, these are the lenses by which
Yeah, I
the
think that's a
adjudication
good
will
idea.
occur, and we come up with a bunch of different things. Collaboration, you know, some Coast Salish or some sort of regional context, or like, we can come up with maybe a bunch of criteria on that.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily you have to hit all these, it's these are the types of things that we'll consider as we adjudicate.
Yeah, and on the last page is the criteria that I pulled from somewhere. And so we can tweak that as we get to it, to make it fit the committee.
Okay.
I have to leave at 8:30.
We're gonna get out of here by 8:30, that's just the way it is. Nice one. Okay. Where are we? We're gonna put the budget art meeting in there. We don't really,
How much is 2 million in liability, in general liability? How much would it cost an artist to?
Anywhere from $200 to $500.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally fair.
so. Why can we not carry this insurance? That's gonna scare artists
You have
off.
the two people who can answer that question, because they're not a contractor and they're not a volunteer. And those are the two
Why aren't they a contractor?
I'm gonna have to talk to finance, because this was exactly what we went through for the,
Library.
yeah, the mural call.
I know, and I think it's a real
Stumbling block.
stumbling block.
Yeah.
Like, these types of things, we should be
Can't we just do it
We
under
should
the
have
umbrella
right-
of the Squamish Arts Council?
We have challenges in this area.
Yeah,
so-
you
yeah.
Yeah.
There's got to be some sort of a contract that an artist can sign while working on a public project that would then allow them to be covered by the council or by the district liability-wise.
Yeah.
You know,
Or even if we have a generic thing that we pay for, but it's their rider. Like, we need to make
And
this,
that's what we ultimately ended up doing.
yeah.
well, I think that we just need to make this not scary. Like, seriously,
Okay.
artists will look in this, I have to $2 million liability.
What?
No.
I know, that's right.
Anybody who's professional and will be able to apply to this will know about this.
That's what I
I,
was hoping.
for sure. I have a comment.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Just to go back a little bit on the art medium paragraph, do we want to include anything with regards to how the work will age and whether over time, and whether or not the artist in the conception of the work will take that into consideration?
Or at least
Maintenance or-
outline what ongoing maintenance program may be for,
I have that wording under, no, it's okay, under the criteria may include but not limit to durability, maintenance, and safety requirements.
and I'm wondering if,
Okay.
I think,
No,
maybe there's an expectation on the winning proponent working with the district on what a maintenance program would look like.
Yeah.
Or the shortlisted, or like we may want to, that might be a consideration if we're looking at two going, oh, this one will cost us $1,000 a year to maintain and this one costs us nothing.
Yeah.
That might be part of a criteria, and maybe that becomes the,
Absolutely.
yeah. okay.
Yeah. So you'd like to see that included as kind of as a statement underneath art medium?
I think
It's worth calling
within the
out.
criteria, that might be one of the things, durability and
Yeah.
longevity and weathering and vandalism and whatever. But we also likely, just in our process, have a process where we go, if we're through the vetting process and we've come down to maybe 2 or 3 artists, part of the next piece of the conversation is, what's the maintenance program on this? What do we need to do? Mosaic needs to be, lifted and re-foundationed every 10 years, whereas a mural needs to be, I don't know.
Okay.
And some art might not be meant to last either, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there's a reason why it doesn't.
Like multimedia projects and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
We did it under the Canby Bridge with that whole
Oh, that was a
fish
fish,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah. That's something somebody may submit for something like this, but of course it's not going to be here in 20 years. Who knows?
Okay. 2-stage jury competition. Which one? Maybe instead of finalist, shortlisted or something?
Sure.
And maybe in here, we add a maintenance proposal or in the stage 2. Anything else to add in that one? So I think we'll leave the timeline open for now, because
Yeah.
we're going to try to get, but I think what we can do, we have enough of the nub to maybe make another submission to Van City. Okay. Everyone think we're ready, we can do that? Okay. And then we'll see if there's any other additions, depending on what we get. Okay. And these, Devin, were from some other previous, you stole those, I'm hoping? You acquired with permission?
Yeah. Vetted through our IT department and yes,
Okay.
yeah.
No, we have selection process here, so maybe that's just where we have some of those things,
Correct.
considerations
Yeah.
will be given to these things as we decide. Okay. Anything else on this? So Devin will sort of tweak this up. If anyone has any more comments, maybe we'll just ask them to send them directly to Devin.
What I'll do is I'll clean it up and just email it out to the group anyway,
Okay.
so you all have it and can sit on it, and then we don't have to just keep presenting. We can just sit on it until we're ready to come back.
Okay, and then Sydney, Devin, and I can maybe do up another
Yeah.
fancy one. Excellent. Cool. Any other comments on that for now?
Cool. Super exciting.
It is very exciting, isn't it? Staff updates, we can do this very quickly.
Let me email out.
I can go to Sydney, street banners for Wind Festival.
Here, let me just do our street banners real quick, just because it'll
Okay.
influence the, what did I say? Budget, we've been staring at it,
That-
you
yeah.
haven't spent anything. What I did find out though is any unused dollars. So last committee meeting, I incorrectly told you, as per finance, that once budget dollars that went unspent vamanosed, that was incorrect. It gets rolled over into
Reserve of
reserve,
something.
yeah.
Do we know what we have in the reserve?
The 87,000, no,
Go back to the, we have the 87 plus 15 plus 10. But we
Correct.
should have more than 10 in maintenance because
Maintenance,
we've
yeah.
been putting money in there for a couple
For
years.
3 years.
that's what I'll have to check.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Street banners, so you guys produced.
Hey, go back for a second.
Sorry,
It's
yeah.
at 62K. Oh, that's what we got.
That's
No,
what
no.
you got for
That
2018.
was a revenue from the budget.
Yeah. Yeah, so you guys produced street banners in 2017. They generally have a lifespan of approximately 2 years. These are, so this will be the second year. They're in fairly good shape as reported to us by operations, and they may be able to go through 2019. I'm just providing some feedback. They're due to go up on May 18th.
Nice.
And so that's the street banners. Did you want to go to city?
Do we have any leftover street banners of the funny run?
Yep,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
Sydney, I'll just go. Oh, on the street banners? Meg? On what Devin was saying? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just thinking it'd be really cool if we had the Truth and Reconciliation project go up and we actually had street banners that were celebrating that at some point too. Just an idea.
That's a great idea
Yeah.
for the next run.
Yeah.
Yeah. That could be a small project that we sort of initiate in September, October with anticipation of putting them up with the first, hopefully the first project will be sometime next spring and do that. And then we'll still have, we might have banners that are in still good shape and,
We could rotate those through
Yeah.
in a few years later.
good idea. Awesome. Sydney?
So I was going to talk about two things. One was a public art camp and one was banners. And Sierra's going to hear on the public art camp side of things. So just considering her time, do you guys want to do the public camp first?
Go where, floor is yours.
Cool. So the public art camp is happening this year. Sierra is going to be the lead artist facilitator.
Thanks, Toby.
These
Toby's
are
passed
recommendation
the
for
torch.
Toby. Yeah. So yeah, that's great. We've sort of scattered out. We've worked a little bit with staff and then
Kimishenko?
yes, to source out. And Sierra's also did a little bit of recon to figure out a couple of great spots. So these, I don't know if you can see it, but these are a few areas. And essentially what we're coming to the committee is just to get feedback on these areas, which are all municipal, which we believe are all municipal
I don't know.
infrastructure. And to essentially ask for permission. to
Did you?
choose-
Okay. I was like, I think these are all.
Yes.
Yeah.
And ask for permission to choose one of these spaces, and if there's a space that is preferable, to give feedback on that.
And they're both in the campground?
So, no, there's a whole bunch.
There's a whole
So there's
bunch. Oh, okay.
the campground, so there's obviously the bathroom building that's there, and then there's the one that holds the sink. So I didn't know if that was a permanent structure, if that's if it's moving, like the cleanup area. It looks like maybe it's gonna get something on the outside of it. And
I have no
maybe if
idea.
it's getting something, then we can paint the outside of
It
it.
looks like a fairly new slab.
It isn't, yeah, that's why I was like, it looks like it's new, and when I checked it out, everything's clean and ready to go, so.
Devin can check with Ops.
Okay, cool. So that would be great, because it's low, we have bathrooms nearby, we have water, everything that we need.
I have a car that needs a Mosaic.
Oh, perfect. And then.
Gas bills go way up.
Like, hold on a second.
Sorry,
Catherine,
go
no.
Hey, I'm not busy.
And then the other options are, do another slide.
Yeah, I
The
got
next one, so then, the other one is the cement structure, I don't know what this is called, but behind.
Cement structure sounds good.
Cement structure, yeah, that thing with 3 walls.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Would be great.
Yeah.
Again, it's a location that's not too high enough, so we're not like anything in a crazy area, which is great for
Devin,
kids,
yes.
yeah.
I just want you guys to visually keep in mind that that's where the dumpster goes that hasn't been delivered yet.
Oh.
So the dumpster sits in that alcove.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not an arbitrary one.
Except they take the dumpster away on us.
We paint the dumpster too?
No, that's what we're whispering is, maybe we work with Carney's to
Maybe
paint the
we-
dumpster too.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Can it be empty for a week while we do it?
Well,
Yeah.
what they could do is put one
One
there
for us,
and
please.
then just put one aside to paint.
Yeah.
And then put that there. We can work, that
And
was kind of an idea.
incorporate the design into the dumpster.
That'd be fun.
It would be fun, actually.
Yeah. That'd be fun. So then that was, I didn't realize dumpster went there, so
Yeah.
that's good to know. Because I was like, what is this space for? Artists supposed to hide behind it when they go on stage?
Maybe a canvas.
Yeah, I was like, it is a perfect canvas.
It's the green room.
It's the green room, yeah. And then the next one was, there's a bunch of structures on the baseball fields, and I don't know, like there's one, and I didn't know what field number it was and stuff like that. When you come into Brennan Park, so Brennan Park's on your right, on the left-hand side, there's that one, so if you use that outside of that,
Yeah.
so it's not impeding players, or it's not obstructing any kind of, visual for the players. And then the other ones are on the other side.
We wouldn't want to confuse baseball players with art.
No, not at all.
That would be,
It'd be very overwhelming. And then the other one is not attached to the field, but like in the kind of the parking lot.
yeah.
There's a building that has a whole bunch of sides that we could just do a chunk of, and then the other one, of course. So there's a pile of them, but I don't know what the rules are around.
I think, Devin, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think some of the associations
Have
sort of have
buildings.
a pseudo, I want to say ownership, but have rights over, like, this
Yeah.
is the fast pitch.
Like
Tubes,
their
ball diamond and therefore their, but the one in the middle, that's where the bathrooms are, is that the,
That's not the bathrooms. I didn't do the bathrooms because that felt like it was too
The clubhouse?
clubhousey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's across from the bathrooms, that one in the middle.
oh, it's some utility something, isn't it? Devin?
Yeah, it looked more utility building, and then the other one on the far side is again just like not the dugout, but kind of the dugout for the players.
The bullpen.
The backside, the bullpen, there you go.
Yeah,
I gotta get up with this one.
sporty over here.
Yeah, and then the last one is Brennan Park, because I know that was in the public art call, and it never, when Stan did that inside wall, that one wasn't included with it, so,
That was an option, but it wasn't chosen.
but it wasn't, yeah, it wasn't
That'd be great,
necessary for
too.
both. But that would be great for an art camp as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're definitely open to this one because we had sort of proposed it a year ago anyway.
Yeah,
We'd have to move the
yeah.
heart thingy, just so it doesn't get lost in
AED.
Miro. We'd have to put it on a different wall, but we can do that.
Yeah, so those are ones that I kind of scoped out and I thought would be a good place just to have kids, and there's not too many logistic things.
Any objections to any of them? I think they're all a possibility, so I almost think I just want to let you sort of decide what you like best as a
Okay.
canvas.
Yeah.
The only thing, Devin might want to just check with Public Works to see the permanence of these ones,
Yeah.
and to see if there's any complication with a baseball association or
Yeah,
something
Okay.
with the baseball diamond ones. But that's the only sort of caveat, I think.
Okay. And the Carney's trash can?
Is there any kind of thing that we did one in Valley Cliff last year, we'd like to do one just geographically? do we look at things in terms of that? It's not a question for me
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah. I moved away from Valley Cliff because of that reason, because I live on, so I drive past that lovely one every day. So I was like, okay, well, we should move somewhere else. And I know that too. I mean, you had the hospital there for bathrooms, but
Yeah.
it was a bit of a logistic, like a little bit of nightmare because you had to like flag everything off. And
Yeah.
so I was trying to look logically with having a group of 14 children.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
I think
one of the other categories
But it's great,
is Garibaldi Highlands a better location of blah, 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 simply
Yeah.
because we've actually got something installed there, so I'm just wondering how we make.
Well, I think
As a committee, those
our first
decisions.
project was we did 3 different neighborhoods, so
Yeah.
Highlands, Brackendale, downtown, and then all the utility box wrapping that we did are all over the place too. No, I thought
They're all downtown, aren't they?
no, there's still one to go up near Brackendale, mostly downtown, I can't remember. We had other locations,
Yeah.
but they didn't get chosen.
Okay.
Too. And then we did the one in Valley, you guys did the one in Valley Cliff. But I think we do want to keep an eye on it as a committee to say, you know what, this neighborhood's being underrepresented, let's do something
But
here.
all of these are in a very
Yeah.
public places,
Yeah.
so I would say they're all.
I think not necessarily to this project, but I think it's something, a good point to keep in mind for the committee period, to say, you know, Dentville doesn't have anything, or, you know, we want to sort of keep a little mindful of that, for sure. Awesome, so I think we just work with Devin to see if there's any hindrances to any of those, and I really like Brennan Park, I think is a great one, especially if the weather's
No,
not
they
good.
could deal with the elements.
Actually, I don't mind. I'll just take my camper van and push out the thing. I already have ideas.
Yeah.
How can I do this with my children?
And then the one behind Junction Park, if we actually can get Carney's in on, that would be
fun.
kind of really interesting.
Yeah.
And kind of inspire.
That's what I was thinking.
Dumpsters could
I've
be
seen
our,
bears.
our cement trucks,
Yes.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
our Granville Island cement trucks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So a conversation with Carney's, because I think they technically own the dumpsters.
Yeah.
I don't know if we own them or they own, I think they own them. Yeah.
Certainly have their stickers all over.
Do they rotate
Yeah.
them? Like, do
I think they do, but I think it's like, I think once they put one there for the summer, then they just tip it.
Yeah, for the summer.
And then
take it
yeah,
away
they
again.
take it away, but,
And then we just put the same, like,
exactly, yeah.
hopefully it stands
So
out.
we could
You
paint
figure out
all
which
the
one it
walls
is.
around it as well, right? So when it's not there, you still have
something,
piece
yeah.
of work. Yeah.
Great, so then I guess we will work with Devin to decide on an appropriate location.
Yeah.
And then the last piece of the public art camp is that the Arts Council would like to come with a small funding request, similar to last year, in order to secure the types
Supplies.
of materials that are required for exterior applications. So we are putting a small request of $250 to the art committee.
I think we are open to that and a little bit more, don't be too shy.
As Patricia
And that
learned,
reminds me, the rep for Bear Paint lives here locally, and he said that they would donate paint. So I might still have his contact. I'll make a note of that.
Okay, Mick?
I just wanted to steal in Devin's thunder a little bit, but the Mosaic project, there may be an opportunity to actually do some painting on that too. So that would require a little bit of money and that kind of stuff, should this committee agree to what is going to be proposed. So there may be another opportunity for, I don't know, a camp or whatever, so that'll be coming up shortly.
Cool. So let's just, Street Banners Wind Festival, or do you want to go to Street Banners first and then we'll do this? I'm really trying to be cognizant of time and get us out of here in the next 5 minutes. So,
So street banners, essentially the Wind Festival got a couple funding grants this year. We're trying to do something a little different to bring some attention to the festival. So we reached out to Sarah to do a Wind Festival specific banner, and we would like to put it in front of the Public Art Committee to consider including this banner as, with the run of banners that go up with the district banners. There won't be,
Are you looking for this one?
yes, but also I can explain the design.
the one before.
Yes.
Okay.
So there will only be 30 banners in total, which means 15 poles because they're double poles. And so I guess we're looking to the committee for feedback on artwork, on concept, and on location in terms of where these banners should be. 15 poles in total could be for the district. And yeah, so just a little bit of background on the artwork. We reached out to Sarah because we wanted to have some continuity between the banners. And the one that you see there, the previous picture without the artwork in the squares was the blank canvas, so to say. And Sarah wanted it to be representative of our art sector, so we included, I think there's about 20 artists' works included in that design as a final piece, and it's meant to represent a wave or a theme of wind.
Right.
Yeah.
So just go to the next one for a second. So would the banner have the Squamish Wind Festival at the bottom?
It would, yes,
Yeah, cool.
yes. It would. It might also include the dates on there somehow, but.
The only thing if you do the
yes.
dates is you date the year and then you can't use them again.
I know, yeah, we're really toying with that.
So can I,
Yes.
so a couple of years ago, when we did the Olympic banners, I looked to Anne because you were involved in that. We had, so you had the light lamp standard and the banners. I'll show you this fantastic artwork in a second. But so you had the banners, and then the banner would go here, right? Here and here. And then it was through the chamber, I think, and the chamber got sponsorship for a little flag underneath it. So maybe you do that, and then you make little flags
Date flags.
and put the date on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like the sun run, Vancouver sun run.
And then you don't have to, then you can use this again next year and just put a new date, and just way
Yeah.
cheaper to do,
Color the flag.
like,
So it would only be up for the duration of the sort of festival.
and it doesn't have to be this really
Yeah.
awful shape. It can be just it can be any kind of shape. but-
So, yeah, the current, we were talking to staff, and in our conversation with staff, we deemed it appropriate to put it up with the banner, and it's supposed to be May 18th deadline, and then that to take it down after and replace with the district banner. So it would be up between May 18th and first week of August.
So just up for that. You might want it up a little bit in advance too, no?
In advance of the.
Wind Festival?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
May, yeah.
Oh, May, oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I thought you meant the 18th to the week that you're,
Oh,
no, okay,
no,
perfect, yeah,
sorry.
that's awesome.
So we would collaborate on that, I guess, resource effort to get all the banners up. And then the Arts
Thanks.
Council would get them replaced, essentially, with the regular banners after the festival.
So, yeah, sorry, so
I think
what,
the design's fabulous, and
Yeah.
we should help pay for it.
so it would be staff's recommendation that the Arts Council would be responsible for the cost to take their banners down and put back up the original Squamish Street banners after the duration of the
And how
festival.
much is that?
It's about, I got quoted $900 to do that from, yeah.
Okay. I think it's great. I think it's awesome. I would recommend not putting the date on them, because you just date the whole banner, and then, it'd be great if you get funding every year, but it seems a bit of a waste to just have it one season, and do a little flag underneath that has the date.
Why does it have to come down after the Wind Festival? Why can't it all come down at
Sydney?
the same time? And particularly if you've just got a little tear-off flag on the bottom that puts a date on.
Yeah, I mean, that's the recommendation, but we're open to a conversation to have, at the.
It would just save some money is all I'm thinking.
I don't think, I particularly care if it stays up.
And there's only 15, you said,
There's 15 poles, 30 flags in total.
but 15 poles.
Yeah.
And when do the major ones come down? How late in the summer?
October usually?
Yeah,
So you're just talking about.
The only
2 months.
benefit of taking it down is it doesn't become generic in people's minds. It's like different, and then, that's the only thing, but I don't particularly care either way.
Okay.
But the only other thing is if the Arts Council wants them to last a little longer, the shorter they're up, the longer they'll last, so
Right.
maybe a budget thing.
The committee doesn't have a particular preference either way.
I don't, do you? They're nice, I mean, they're nice looking, they're great.
Good design.
I'd love to see other festivals kind of do this and
Yeah.
we start actually building a little bit into our operational budget to allow for some of this to go up
Yeah,
and
that would
down.
be great.
I looked at Vancouver's banner policy just out of interest.
Mhm.
And they rent their banner poles out for nonprofit community groups for $10 a month, plus the cost of up and down.
Mhm. And it is expensive, it does
Yes.
actually take a bit.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and the city does the up and down, they don't allow.
No, they make you hire out of a preferred supplier list and who does traffic management and all that stuff.
And Sydney's husband is on our preferred list.
That is not the case.
And his ladder. Adam and his ladder on our
Yeah.
preferred.
He's got insurance. No. You know his liability.
Great, okay, so then I guess the direction is
You got some banners to produce.
to, yep, great. Is there any feedback on the artwork? The artist is open to feedback.
I think it looks great.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah,
I love the concept of, I kind of like the simplicity of the one with the out there arc, but I like the concept of the one with the artwork embedded. And I don't know if the colors are, can you go back to the other one?
Yep.
Yeah, I like the monotone of that, like I kind of like that one.
Can I speak to this, because I am actually one of the artists in that other piece?
Yeah.
I like the simplicity of this better than the one with all
It
the
might
artists in
read
it.
better too.
Because you don't read, they read way better this way, and what
Yeah.
happens is with the other one, you're not actually getting a full piece of anybody's work. So it's a bit messy almost.
The
Yeah,
luminosity of this will,
Yeah.
when you get the sun
Oh,
coming through
they'll
this
be
material,
gorgeous.
it's just gonna
it's like stained glass
pop.
almost, they'll be.
Yeah.
It's gonna really
And it
pop.
fits really well with the other ones too.
Yeah.
But it's distinctive enough
Mhm.
as well.
I could agree with that.
Yeah.
That's
I like
strongest
the
side for sure.
inclusiveness of the concept,
Yeah.
but I think
Yeah.
the other one is pretty
The,
cool.
as the daughter of somebody who's worked on stained glass windows for decades, the other one's more like a stained glass window. And when you're talking about the light coming through, you'll see the interesting mountain and the other bits and the woods will disappear,
Right.
I think,
In the bottom.
especially in that font.
Yeah. So the general feedback is that this committee.
I mean, I like it a lot.
Prefers the design of the first one
Yeah.
versus.
This being the first one,
That one
this
being
being
the
the
first
It
one.
also is very clearly connected to the other banners.
Yeah, and
But they're not gonna
good
be
point, I
out
think the busyness of the other one will
Yeah,
detract
they're
from
they will be
the actual
out.
words, and really it
Yeah.
is a marketing thing too, right? You
Yeah.
want to get people to be aware of the event.
So do the words of the other designs that you have, the one with the water, the ocean scene? What word, where
The same
Oh,
words
those
will be
are
on this.
existing.
Those are the existing ones.
Sorry,
Yeah.
these are
The existing
the
banners.
existing
Oh,
banners.
existing banners.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that will go up either way. Okay, was there any more direction that we would need? Okay, thanks. That's
Awesome, cool.
Yeah, I think.
And, yeah, I don't know if you have the funding for it, but I would do just little date ones, small date ones on the bottom.
Yeah.
Simple color, like don't make them complicated, make them cheap.
I'll ask, they're usually a little bit of an addition, but I can ask, like maybe the chamber has a resource or something, if they do that for us.
Cool.
Cool.
Come back to us, the Squamish Arts Council has been very successful at some grant applications on our behalf. Okay,
do we have time for this, or?
Giddy up.
Giddy up. Stan Clarke Park Mosaic. So we had a very productive meeting with Catherine and Meg. Thank you. So here is our current recommendation. Our determination is to perpendicularly cut the mosaic out while salvaging 3 or 4 sections and scrapping the remaining. Finishing the arc,
what do you mean by scrapping the remaining?
Of the bits that are taken out from the center.
If they just aren't salvageable?
A lot of them aren't.
Okay.
It's gotten worse.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Underneath the plastic, the rubber? Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Broom finishing the concrete and stamping the continuation of a rainbow arc, if that makes sense, so that it becomes a stamped concrete piece with connecting the two sections of the rainbow with its lines. And then using it as a piece or as a platform for public art moving forward.
And the rationale for just the vertical, it's just easier to cut concrete that way?
The concretist,
Sure.
nice. The guy, he's pretty certain it's just gonna crumble. He's
Okay.
He also said as a practical matter, I mean, given the
no, I
geometry of the
understand.
saw and that kind of stuff, doing the straight lines, he also said that he would start in the middle and see how it crumbled. And then he'd try and isolate, you know, like 4 or 5 or maybe even up to 6 tiles so that we would have those. So we'd be able to use those in the credit piece when we actually mount the photograph and why we're doing this as well, so that we would have some. But he didn't want to be bound to trying to cut out every piece. It just didn't make sense.
Yeah, he was very delighted when he realized that we didn't mind, that we were, you know, we want to go with the reality of the situation.
Okay, good.
Did we determine whether the substrate has rebar through it? I
No,
can't
not-
remember.
we didn't
So that's the thing too,
determine that
because so if he has to cut through rebar, it just might all go. And,
It likely does.
yeah, everywhere.
It shouldn't actually, because he thinks he can go right through the rebar just the same way as he goes through the
Yeah.
concrete.
Just takes longer.
But I think what he'll do is actually go, as I say, to the center rather than try to start where the final cuts are going to be.
Yeah.
And those cuts are going to be lined up with the crosswalk, you know, and the sidewalk that's to the west of the mosaic itself. It's not going to line up with the path, the angle of the
Yeah,
path.
and the center is deteriorated to the point where you can actually see that there were 2 sides laid out of concrete. And the
Yeah.
mosaic is like a membrane on top of it.
Okay.
And you can see the line now of and that's where the crack
The center
was.
line.
That's the crack, that's
Oh,
where the
interesting.
rotary one.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
where it came from.
Oh,
So,
interesting, okay.
yeah, so it's, yeah, it was interesting.
And the other piece that I didn't remember was the 4 color panels were poured separately from the red one, which was actually an addition because you can actually see where that is. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then, as we talked earlier, it's an opportunity maybe to do some sort of something in there. Okay.
exactly.
The thought was initially it would be nice to just do the paint, like the blue connected to the blue and the green to the green. But at some point, a community art project, maybe, that we actually look at different sections and look at a kid project or something like that. Because the washrooms are here, they're out of traffic, all that good kind of stuff. So at some point, this may be a more extensive canvas for a community art project. But it would be nice, I think, this summer if we could, you know, like just paint the color connections kind of thing.
Sounds like a good plan. It sounds like our only plan. Anyone disagree with that? No.
No, I was looking for ways to disagree with it, and I just don't think we have much of a
Okay.
choice.
Would you want to put a motion forward? That Public Art Committee endorse
Yes,
the
okay.
plan?
Yeah.
Moved by Catherine, seconded by Meg. Any more discussion on that? I think we just have to do it before it disintegrates even more. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries.
So I will be contacting the contractor and operations to move forward with that plan,
Okay.
as well as communicate that out to the public so
Yeah.
that no
Yeah.
one's off.
I suggested that the chief gets a press release sooner rather than later, so that people suddenly don't freak out on Facebook.
Yeah,
Because and also maybe photographs
because
too.
people are prone to freaking out on Facebook.
And then we'll come back to the committee to determine locations of those salvaged pieces once we've made.
Awesome.
And some kind of a credit, like why and what and where and
Yeah.
all that good kind of stuff, that
Okay.
why this was done.
And-
Because I think that we should document that.
Absolutely.
And,
Yeah.
and they used me as the protagonist for their story last year, so I'm happy to talk to them again if they
Excellent.
want to say, and Catherine, and all the committees say, blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah.
and maybe use Meg too, just because she was involved in the
For
project
sure,
way back
yeah,
then.
for sure, I think
Yeah.
that's absolutely.
Awesome, okay, sounds great. Thanks, guys. That was helpful, it's great to.
I don't want to be there when
Before
they're doing it though.
I want to see what's down
I
there.
kind of, I'm curious.
Yeah.
If I'm in my office, come on. Okay,
Text.
let's do this in 3 minutes.
Um,
Yeah.
If we're moving roundtable, can I use my roundtable time to just, I forgot to mention, any preferential location for the Winnie Festival Street banner flags from this committee?
Locations?
Locations, because there's only about like 40 to 50 flagpoles down Cleveland Avenue. It is the Arts Council, because Wind Festival takes place downtown, to put some of them on Cleveland, but we don't want to monopolize the space, like using all 15 spaces. So if there's any preferences of location in this committee, I guess we're just looking for that.
Some of the sorry, commercial areas, maybe a couple here and there, because then it's an advertisement for the fact that that's what's happening. Like the malls.
I don't have a huge preference. I think you might want to cluster some around Junction Park, but you might also want to have some in strategic locations where people congregate a lot too, so. As long as it just doesn't look like a full-on streetscape of one thing at one place. Anyone else have a particular concern either way?
And just wherever people can see it so they can go to the festival.
Yeah. Awesome. I think we don't have time for roundtable unless there's a burning issue. Awesome, I'll look for a motion to terminate the meeting. Moved by Finn.
Seconded by Bill.
Moved by Meg, seconded by Sydney. All those in favor? Opposed? Did you move the motion?